Manipulators use this so quietly you barely notice it happening. The more you invested, the harder it became to accept the investment was not working. The more you invested, the harder it became to accept the investment was not working. Years, energy, plans you built together, parts of yourself you gave. The sunk cost fallacy says that past investment should not influence future decisions because it is already spent regardless of what you choose. But the next part is where it turns dangerous. But emotionally it does not work that way. Walking away feels like confirming the loss was for nothing. So you stay, trying to make it add up. The painful truth is that staying longer does not honor what you already gave. It only adds to what you lose. The best time to leave was before. The second best time is now. And that's the part that gets me every time. Watch the first line again. It explains everything. This tactic has a name, and once you learn it, you will see it everywhere. By the time you hear about the conflict, the story has already been decided. They tell their version to everyone before you even know there is a problem. By the time you hear about the conflict, the story has already been decided. But the real tactic is what comes next. Friends, family, even mutual coworkers have already heard their side, framed carefully in their favor, days before you get a chance to explain anything. When you finally do speak up, you sound defensive against a narrative that was never fair to begin with, because you are always arriving to a story that already has an ending, which is exactly why it works so well. Send this to someone who does this. They count on you never noticing this. Every single conflict somehow traces back to something you did wrong. They never run out of reasons why it was never actually their fault. Every single conflict somehow traces back to something you did wrong. But here is where it gets calculated. It is an impressive skill, honestly, the sheer creativity involved in avoiding accountability for years without ever once running out of material. If you tally every disagreement you have ever had with them, and the responsibility landed on you 100% of the time, the math itself is the evidence, not the individual excuses. And that's the part that gets me every time. Save this. Follow Dark Mind daily. Most people fall for this at least once in their life. This line sounds romantic right up until it starts cutting off everyone else. They convince you they are the only one who truly understands you. This line sounds romantic right up until it starts cutting off everyone else. Nobody else gets you like I do. But here is where it gets calculated. Your friends do not really care about you. It feels like intimacy at first, but it is quietly repositioning them as your sole source of validation. Once you believe no one else truly understands you, you stop checking your reality against anyone but them, which is exactly the point. And that's the part that gets me every time. Watch the first line again. It explains everything. This one explains a relationship you thought you understood. Asking a fair question should not cost you 3 days of being ignored. Their silence gets longer every time you ask for an explanation. Asking a fair question should not cost you 3 days of being ignored. Each request for clarity gets met with a colder, longer shutdown than the last, until you learn to stop asking altogether just to avoid the punishment. This is not someone processing their feelings. It is a deliberate escalation designed to make honest questions feel expensive, so eventually you simply stop bringing them up at all. That's what makes it so hard to spot in the moment. Tag someone who needs to see this. This tactic has a name, and once you learn it, you will see it everywhere. Support that disappears exactly when you succeed was never really support. They get cold the moment you start doing better without them. Support that disappears exactly when you succeed was never really support. When you were struggling, they were endlessly available, endlessly encouraging. The second you got the promotion, started the new routine, built confidence that did not come from them, the warmth vanished, replaced by subtle criticism or sudden distance. Real support wants your growth. What you had wanted your dependence, and your growth just broke the terms of the arrangement. That's what makes it so hard to spot in the moment. Go back and watch how this started. Most people fall for this at least once in their life. When someone goes quiet on you, it is not always about needing space. When someone goes quiet on you, it is not always about needing space. The silent treatment is a tool. It is designed to make you anxious, to make you chase, to make you apologize for things you did not do. The person using it knows exactly what they are doing. They are waiting for you to crack first. And the moment you do, they have trained you. You learned that their silence must be fixed, and you are the one who fixes it. Every time you reach out first, you confirm their power. The silence is not about being hurt. It is about seeing how much you will bend. Most people never even realize it's happening to them. Watch the first line again. It explains everything. I cannot believe how common this actually is. Number 2 happens in almost every meeting you have ever sat in. Office politics run on quiet power plays most people never notice. 1. Taking the head of the table seat even in casual meetings. 2. Repeating someone else's idea moments later and getting the credit. 3. CCing a boss on a routine email just to apply subtle pressure. 4. Scheduling meetings at inconvenient times to control who shows up. 5. Withholding information just long enough to stay one step ahead of everyone else in the room. Most people never even realize it's happening to them. Send this to someone who does this. This is exactly what they do to you, and it works every time. Therapists see this pattern so often it has its own diagnosis-adjacent term. Clinicians call it DARVO. Deny, attack, reverse victim and offender. Someone gets caught doing something wrong, denies it happened, attacks whoever brought it up, then somehow becomes the victim in the story. Research on interpersonal conflict documents this pattern specifically because it works so consistently on reasonable people. Save this. Follow Dark Mind daily. I cannot believe how common this actually is. Researchers describe it as a staircase, not a single moment. Coercive control rarely arrives all at once. Researchers describe it as a staircase. One small boundary crossed, normalized, then a slightly bigger one. Each step alone looks minor. It's only when you look back at the whole staircase that the pattern becomes obvious. And that's the part that gets me every time. Save this. Follow Dark Mind daily. They count on you never noticing this. Watch how differently they treat you when other people are around. They perform kindness in public that they never practice in private. Watch how differently they treat you when other people are around. In front of friends, family, co-workers, they are attentive, affectionate, generous with compliments. The second the audience leaves, so does the performance. This gap between public and private behavior is one of the clearest signals there is, because genuine character does not require witnesses to exist. Rewatch the first 3 seconds. You'll catch it. Most people fall for this at least once in their life. Number 4 is disguised as a joke almost every single time. Passive aggression is anger wearing a polite mask, and it shows up in patterns. 1. The silent treatment framed as just needing space. 2. Backhanded compliments that leave a small sting behind. 3. Deliberately forgetting things that matter to you specifically. 4. Sarcastic jokes that carry a real complaint underneath. 5. Agreeing out loud while doing the opposite the moment you look away. Save this. Follow Dark Mind daily. This tactic has a name, and once you learn it, you will see it everywhere. In the middle of an intense conflict, your brain physically cannot process information normally. In the middle of an intense conflict, your brain physically cannot process information normally. When emotional flooding hits, your heart rate spikes, your prefrontal cortex goes offline, and you lose access to reason, memory, and language. This is why you forget your best points, say things you do not mean, or freeze entirely. Skilled manipulators know this. They escalate conversations specifically to get you to this state because a flooded person cannot defend themselves effectively. The best strategy is not to win while flooded. It is to recognize it and say you need 20 minutes. That is not retreat. That is knowing how your own brain works. And that's the part that gets me every time. Rewatch the first 3 seconds. You'll catch it. I cannot believe how common this actually is. Suddenly mutual friends were checking in, asking questions, reporting back. Suddenly mutual friends were checking in, asking questions that felt oddly specific. And somehow whatever you said seemed to make its way back. These are called flying monkeys. People who are recruited, knowingly or not, to do the manipulator's work for them. They gather information. They relay messages. They apply pressure. Sometimes they genuinely believe they are helping. They have been given a version of events that makes them sympathetic to the wrong person. Recognizing it is not about blaming them. It is about understanding that the manipulation extended further than you thought, and adjusting who you speak openly to. Most people never even realize it's happening to them. Send this to someone who does this. This tactic has a name, and once you learn it, you will see it everywhere. If they're rushing you, be suspicious. Manufactured urgency is one of the oldest manipulation tools. Act now, this offer ends tonight. If you really loved me, you would decide right now. Pressure and time limits are designed to shut down your rational brain, because a rushed mind makes emotional decisions and skips the questions it should ask. Scammers, salespeople, and manipulators all rely on it. Most people never even realize it's happening to them. Tag someone who needs to see this. This is the pattern therapists warn people about. Saying just kidding after something cruel does not undo the cruel part. Saying just kidding after something cruel does not undo the cruel part. Dark humor used to demean, embarrass, or test limits is a common tactic. It allows someone to say something harmful and then position your reaction as the problem. If you laugh, they learn it is acceptable. If you do not, you are told you cannot take a joke. Either way, they win. Over time, the jokes reveal exactly how they see you and what they feel safe saying. Pay attention to what someone thinks is funny at your expense. The content of a joke tells you more about the person telling it than they realize. Tag someone who needs to see this. This is the pattern therapists warn people about. It has a name, and once you learn it, the confusion finally makes sense. Researchers call it the fog effect. It happens when someone keeps you so confused about what's real that you stop trusting your own judgment entirely. You're not imagining the fog. Studies on coercive control describe this exact pattern, and once you know the name, you start noticing it everywhere. Watch the first line again. It explains everything. This is the pattern therapists warn people about. The vacation they kept mentioning, the plans they kept making, none of it was ever real. The vacation they kept mentioning. The house they talked about. The future they painted so clearly you could almost see it. None of it was ever real. Future faking is when someone uses promises to keep you invested without ever intending to follow through. It is not forgetfulness. It is strategy. The promises come when you start pulling away. They get specific enough to feel believable. And then something always comes up. Over time you stop questioning it because you do not want to lose the dream. That is exactly where they want you. And that's the part that gets me every time. Send this to someone who does this. This is exactly what they do to you, and it works every time. Number 4 is what gives most people away. Emotionally strong people understand that some things lose their power the moment you reveal them. Here are 6 things they keep to themselves. 1. Their next move. They let their actions speak after the fact, never announcing plans that others could doubt, copy, or sabotage. 2. How much something hurt them. Save this. Follow Dark Mind daily. Manipulators use this so quietly you barely notice it happening. Confusion keeps you asking questions instead of making decisions. They need you confused more than they need you convinced. Confusion keeps you asking questions instead of making decisions. A confused person does not leave, does not confront, does not act, they just keep trying to understand, endlessly, which is exactly the point. Clarity is the enemy of control, so the goal was never to win the argument. It was to make sure you never got clear enough to realize there was an argument worth winning in the first place. And that's the part that gets me every time. Watch the first line again. It explains everything.